Night, 1956. A twisted mass of metal lies against a Hollywood hillside. The silence is broken by a hiss of a wrecked car's engine and a man's moans of pain. Montgomery Clift's famous face, so handsome and gentle on screen, is now bloodied and broken. Moments ago, his car missed a curve on a dark Beverly Hills road and smashed into a telephone pole. Elizabeth Taylor, hearing the crash, races to the scene and finds her dear friend slumped under the crumpled dashboard. Monty is barely conscious, choking on blood. With trembling hands, Elizabeth reaches into his mouth and pulls out the tooth that's blocking his throat. Sirens wail in the distance as she cradles him, whispering, "You're going to be okay." In the dim light, one of Hollywood's brightest stars clings to life. Years earlier, Montgomery Clift was the very picture of youthful brilliance. In the late 1940s, he burst onto Hollywood screen and quietly revolutionized it. While other leading men were tough, stoic heroes, Clift offered something new, a disarming vulnerability. In his debut film, The Search, and later in The Red River, audiences saw a leading man who was kind, tender, and real, not a macho caricature. He spoke softly, his eyes full of unspoken emotion. Suddenly, it seemed alright for a hero to hurt, to doubt, even to cry. Moviegoers, especially women, were mesmerized by this sensitive young man from Nebraska who made feeling deeply look heroic. By the early 1950s, Clift was a bona fide star with Oscar nominations and adoring fans. In A Place in the Sun, opposite Elizabeth Taylor, he played a poor dreamer torn between love and ambition, and his quiet desperation on screen was heartbreakingly genuine. Instead of the usual confidence, he gave the character a trembling vulnerability that felt revolutionary. He followed that a bit from here to eternity, portraying a principled army private with a gentle soul. In one memorable scene, his character weeps over a friend's death and plays a haunting bugle tribute, a moment of raw emotion that few leading men of the time would dare. Clift proved that masculinity could include tenderness and pain. Critics praised his intensity, and audiences sensed they were witnessing something rare. As one observer noted, film acting was never the same after Montgomery Clift showed what a man's soul looked like on screen. Off screen, Monty was as unique as his roles. He shunned Hollywood's publicity games and lived quietly in New York, making scripts based on artistry rather than fame. But under the gentle smile lay deeper struggles. Clift was gay, or at least bisexual in an era when that was a dangerous secret. He maintained a facade of the eligible bachelor, even going on studio arranged dates with female stars, but confided in a close circle of friends, Elizabeth Taylor among them, about his true self. Hiding such a fundamental part of his identity took a heavy emotional toll. He worried constantly about exposure. At times, he even received anonymous threats from blackmailers trying to out him. The pressure to keep up appearances fueled his anxiety. To cope, Monty turned increasingly to alcohol and pills, seeking relief from fear and self doubt. By mid decade, this beautiful, sensitive man was quietly nearing a breaking point, even as his fame peaked. The breaking point came on May 12, 1956. After a small party at Taylor's house during the film of Raintree Country, Clift drove off into the night and tragedy struck. His car failed to negotiate a tight turn and slammed into a telephone pole with horrifying force. In the wreckage, Monty's face was pulverized against the steering wheel, jaw, nose, and cheekbones shattered. Elizabeth Taylor's swift, fearless response saved his life, but Montgomery Clift would never be the same. He spent weeks in surgery and recovery, mending a face that had entranced millions. Doctors marveled that they could piece him back together with few visible scars, but when Clift finally looked in the mirror, the changes were unmistakable. The left side of his face was nearly paralyzed, his once dazzling smile now uneven and pained. After only 2 months, he bravely returned to finish Raintree Country. Monty joked darkly that audiences would pay just to see how damaged he was now. And indeed, difference in his appearance was stark. On screen, he looked older, tired, the light in his eyes dimmed. Surviving the crash was only the beginning of Clift's battle. The physical pain was constant. His injuries left him with headaches, a limp, and tortured sleep. To endure it, he leaned harder on the pills and alcohol that had already haunted him. His once elegant features grew puffy and weary from substance abuse. Friends watched in sorrow as Monty drifted into a downward spiral. Over the next few years, he still found work. He made almost as many films after the accident as before, but the spark was fading. His behavior became erratic and unpredictable, to the point where one acting teacher grimly nicknamed his decline the longest suicide in Hollywood history. The world saw a man wasting away before its eyes. Even so, Montgomery Clift could still astonish with moments of brilliance. In 1961, he took a small role in Judgment at Nuremberg because it was all he could get, and delivered a performance so raw and heartfelt that it earned him another Oscar nomination. Playing a broken witness on the stand, he used his own fragility to breathtaking effect. That same year, on the set of The Misfits, co-star Marlon Monroe, herself spiraling in addiction, watched Clift struggle and remarked that he was the only person I know who's in worse shape than I am. It was a sad acknowledgement from one troubled soul to another. By the mid-1960s, Clift had become a ghost in Hollywood. Studios saw him as uninsurable, too risky to cast. He spent his days secluded in his Manhattan townhouse, battling illness and addiction, far from the bright lights that once celebrated him. Through it all, a few loyal friends never gave up on Monty. Elizabeth Taylor remained his fiercest protector, always ready to help. In 1966, she even put her own salary on the line to convince a studio to hire Clift opposite her in a new film, hoping it might spark his comeback. He was touched by her faith and agreed to try it. He would need to get healthy enough to start shooting in a few months, a slim window of hope. But that summer, fate intervened one final time. In the early hours of July 23, 1966, Montgomery Clift died alone in his bedroom of a massive heart attack at age 45. His nurse found him in the morning lying peaceful in bed, still wearing his glasses, with both fists clenched as if resisting the end until the last. The official report cited occlusive coronary artery disease, but in truth, years of damage and heartbreak had finally taken their toll on his body. Clift's funeral was small and private. Those who loved him remember the kind, generous man behind the legend, the witty friend, the gentle soul who never wanted to hurt anyone. In the decades since, Montgomery Clift's story has often been painted as Hollywood's cautionary tale, a symbol of talent consumed by tragedy. But focusing only on his sad end does a disservice to who he was and what he gave us. Monty changed cinema forever. He showed that leading men don't have to be invincible. They can be vulnerable, compassionate, and profoundly human. Without his example, we might not have seen the same emotional depth in the actors who followed, the rebel tears of James Dean, or the fragile intensity of River Phoenix. Clift made it possible for men on screen to feel. Today, the legacy of Montgomery Clift lives on in every performance that values honesty over bravado. His life was short and marked by pain, but through that pain, he found truth and beauty to share. Watch any of his films and you can see it. The vulnerability in his eyes, the courage it took to be that open. It's the gift he left to cinema. Montgomery Clift will always be remembered as the beautiful, tormented heart of Hollywood's golden age. A man who proved that the real strength lies in having the courage to feel. His story was a tragedy, yes, but a tragically beautiful one. And its echo will never fade. If you believe in honoring the past with accuracy and respect, we invite you to subscribe to Echoed and help us keep these essential stories alive for the next generation.